It starts like a normal Florida afternoon. Hot air, heavy clouds, that sticky silence that always comes right before the sky opens up. Guests are still laughing, still buying drinks, still taking pictures. And then the rain hits. Not gentle rain, not a passing shower. This is the kind of downpour that sounds like gravel being thrown onto rooftops. Sheets of water slam into the pavement so hard it instantly bounces back into the air. In less than 2 minutes, the streets inside the park begin to shine like mirrors. But the first warning isn't the rain. It's the drains, because the water doesn't disappear. It just sits there and spreads. At first, it's ankle deep. People step around it, annoyed, like it's just another inconvenience. Parents lift toddlers into their arms. Some guests laugh and record it, joking about how Florida is crazy. But then the rain starts moving. It begins to flow in long, fast streams, cutting across walkways, rushing downhill, pouring through entrances and under gates. The park's carefully designed pathways become channels, funneling the stormwater straight into crowds. Within minutes, the water climbs to shin level, then knee level, and suddenly the mood changes. You can hear it in the voices. The laughter disappears and turns into nervous shouting. Shoes get sucked into the mud. People stumble, grabbing railings, trying not to fall. Strollers become useless, wheels locked by debris. Some parents abandon them completely, carrying children against their chests while trying to keep bags above the rising flood. Security radios crackle non-stop. Water breach near the central walkway. Repeat, breach near the central walkway. And then another call. Guests trapped near the bridge. Water rising fast. That's when the first terrifying thing happens. A section of pavement near a drain begins to bubble. Not like boiling water, like the ground itself is breathing. A dark circle forms in the middle of the walkway, and people back away as it widens. The surface dips slightly, then drops. A hole opens. Not huge, but enough to make the crowd scream. Water swirls into it like a bathtub drain, pulling trash, cups, and loose sandals toward the opening. The drain system is no longer controlling the flood. It's losing the fight. Across the park, workers begin dragging out bright yellow barricades, trying to block off sections that are already underwater. But the flood is moving too fast. It's creeping into gift shops, pouring into ride entrances, spilling down stairways like a waterfall. And now, the worst part. The exits are starting to disappear. Parking areas are flooding. Access roads are turning into shallow lakes. People are realizing that even if they leave the park, they may have nowhere to go. And above it all, the storm doesn't slow down. The clouds thicken, the rain gets louder, and the water keeps rising. This is the moment guests understand something horrifying. They are not watching a storm anymore. They are trapped inside a place that was never supposed to flood. For the first few minutes, the response is hesitation, not because they don't see it, but because what they're seeing makes no sense. This place is built to handle storms, Florida storms, heavy storms, the kind of rain that comes in like an ocean dump and leaves just as fast. The drainage system beneath these streets is supposed to swallow water like it's nothing. So when the water starts rising instead of disappearing, the first reaction is denial. Disney security stands at the edges of the flooded walkways, radios pressed to their mouths, watching families wade through brown water that shouldn't even exist here. They keep repeating the same words, like saying it out loud will make it stop. Hold position, await instructions. But the storm doesn't wait, and neither does the flood. Behind the scenes, a chain reaction begins, quiet at first, then explosive. Maintenance crews are dispatched toward the worst areas, sprinting through rain with flashlights and equipment bags, boots splashing through water already too deep for comfort. One worker reaches a service hatch near a landscaped area, tries to pull it open, and water erupts out like a pressurized burst. Not a trickle, not a leak, a violent surge, blasting up from the ground as if something beneath the park has snapped open. That's when the radios change tone. Now it's no longer calm instructions. Now it's panic. Pump station isn't responding. Gate access blocked. Flooding in the service corridor. Repeat, flooding in the corridor. And then the words no theme park ever wants to say. Begin evacuation procedures. At the same time, outside the park, local emergency services are already receiving calls, not from one person, not from two, from dozens. Guests trapped in knee-deep water, families separated, people claiming they can't reach the exits because the walkways are turning into rivers. A dispatcher's voice crackles through a county radio channel. Possible mass flooding event, multiple locations, large crowd. And suddenly, what should have been a manageable storm becomes a public emergency. Authorities arrive at the outer access points, only to find roads flooded, cars stalled, and traffic jammed in complete confusion. Guests are trying to leave, but they're boxed in. Water pours across intersections, swallowing curbs and creeping toward vehicle doors. Inside the park, security begins shouting instructions over loudspeakers, but the messages are drowned out by thunder and screaming wind. Please remain calm, move to higher ground, follow staff directions. And yet calm is impossible because the park is changing by the minute. A guest steps into what looks like shallow water and suddenly drops into a deeper pocket, almost going under. People pull them up, soaked and shaking. Another group tries to cross a walkway, but the current is pushing against their legs like a moving wall. This is no longer rainwater. This is a flood with force. In the control rooms, staff stare at camera feeds that look unreal, entire sections submerged, crowds bottlenecked at narrow bridges, and water spilling into areas that are supposed to stay dry no matter what. Then comes the moment the officials realize the truth. The drainage system isn't just struggling, it's failing. And if it fails completely, they won't be evacuating a theme park. They'll be rescuing thousands of trapped people. The terrifying part isn't that the flooding is happening. The terrifying part is how quickly it looks familiar. Because as crews scramble through the water, some of them are already saying the same thing into their radios, quietly at first, like they don't want anyone else to hear it. This area has been backing up for weeks. And that's when the story changes, because this isn't just a storm overwhelming the park. This is something that has been building underneath it. For months, there have been strange signs, small things that guests barely notice, but workers can't ignore. Drains that gurgle when there's no rain, puddles that linger for hours in places that used to dry in minutes. Service roads that feel softer underfoot, like the ground is slowly turning to sponge. A maintenance worker pushes through knee-deep water and reaches a storm drain near a walkway lined with decorative plants. He shines a flashlight down into it, and the beam hits something solid. Not concrete, not open space, a packed wall of debris, leaves, plastic, dirt, even broken trash from the park, cups, wrappers, chunks of cardboard, compressed so tightly the drain looks like it's been stuffed shut. He tries to pull it free with a tool, but it barely moves. Because the drain isn't clogged at the surface, it's blocked deeper down, and now the water has nowhere to go. At another point, workers open a service access panel near a pump station. Inside, alarms are flashing red. The sound is deafening, mechanical whining mixed with a deep, struggling rumble. The pumps are running, but they're losing. Water is pouring in faster than the system can push it out. The pipes shudder like they're under pressure. The entire station feels like it's vibrating, like a machine being forced past its limits. Then something worse happens. A sharp metallic bang echoes through the corridor, and the pressure drops. For a split second, the pump sound changes, like it gasps. Then it surges again, louder, strained, angry. It's fighting to stay alive, but the water keeps rising anyway. In another flooded section, guests are pointing at the pavement, shouting. The ground is cracking. Thin lines appear, spreading like spiderwebs across the walkway. Water bubbles through the seams, as if it's being pushed up from below. A few feet away, a metal grate lifts slightly, rattling in place. And then it happens again. The pavement dips. A shallow depression forms in seconds, as if the ground beneath is being washed away. A security worker drags barricades over, yelling for people to move back, but the crowd is too dense, too confused. They can't see the danger until it's right under their feet. And behind the scenes, the storm drains begin doing something horrifying. Instead of pulling water down, they start spitting water up. Water surges out of grates like fountains, blasting into the air and flooding areas that weren't even submerged moments ago. It's not rainwater anymore. It's dirty, brown, mixed with sediment, like the swamp itself is being forced back through the system. That's when one official says the words nobody wants to hear. The groundwater is rising. And in Florida, that phrase is a nightmare. Because when groundwater rises, it doesn't matter how many pumps you have. It doesn't matter how much money you spent. The water doesn't need to come from the sky anymore. It comes from the earth. And now the storm isn't the only threat. The park is flooding from above and below. And the worst realization hits hard. This system didn't fail in one day. It was weakening, quietly, silently, waiting for the moment the rain finally pushed it over the edge. And tonight, that moment has arrived. The park doesn't look like a park anymore. It looks like a coastal town during a hurricane, only the buildings are painted bright, the music is still playing in some areas, and the contrast makes it even more disturbing. Because the floodwater isn't clean. It's dark. It's thick. It moves slowly in some places, then suddenly rushes fast in others, swirling around corners like it's searching for the next place to invade. It crawls into souvenir shops, soaking shelves, knocking over displays, turning colorful merchandise into floating debris. And as the water spreads, something else spreads with it. The smell. A heavy, swampy odor rises into the air. Mud, rotting plants, stagnant water. It's the smell of Florida's wetlands, the smell of land that was never meant to be dry. Guests cover their noses. Parents pull shirts over children's faces. Some people gag as they wade through water that now feels wrong to touch. Then the wildlife appears. At first it's small, tiny frogs clinging to curbs, displaced by the flood. Then snakes, sliding through the murk like moving ropes. People scream when they spot them, scrambling backward, trying to climb benches, railings, anything to get their feet out of the water. Security tries to calm them, but they can't, because it gets worse. A cast member points into the water near a landscaped area and freezes. Something large moves just beneath the surface. A slow ripple, a shape, a head, a pair of eyes breaking the waterline for a second before vanishing again. Nobody says the word out loud, but everyone is thinking it. Alligator. And suddenly, the flood isn't just water, it's a living threat.
Near one of the ride entrances, the current becomes stronger, pulling debris into a tight spiral. Trash cans tilt, a plastic sign snaps loose and spins away. A child's balloon disappears into the water like it's being dragged down. People try to cross, but they can't keep balance. The water pushes against their knees, and the ground beneath them is uneven, softening, sinking, giving way. A woman slips. She screams as she goes down, arms flailing. Two strangers grab her and pull her up, but her legs are shaking, her face white with shock. And in the distance, there's a sound that cuts through the storm, a deep, grinding crack. It comes from somewhere behind the buildings, near a service road. Guests stop moving. Even the staff pause, listening. Then another sound follows, a dull collapse. Not an explosion, not a crash, a sinking, heavy failure, like the earth itself just gave up. The flood surges again, faster now, as if something underground has opened wider. Water rushes into new areas, spilling through employee-only gates, pouring into spaces that were protected just minutes ago. And now the park begins to transform into something unrecognizable. Paths vanish under murky water, signs tilt at strange angles, lights flicker in reflections like broken stars. And the most unsettling part is this: the storm is still overhead, but the swamp is no longer outside the park. It's inside it, and it's spreading. It's reclaiming every inch, and people are realizing a horrifying truth. This place was built on wet ground, and tonight the wet ground is taking it back.